April 23, 1985. Coca-Cola headquarters, Atlanta, Georgia. The fluorescent lights hum over a boardroom table where 12 executives sit in complete silence. Chairman Roberto Goizueta holds a single sheet of paper, the results of 200,000 blind taste tests. His hand trembles, not from fear, from anticipation. In 72 hours, he will announce the unthinkable, the termination of the original Coca-Cola formula, a recipe worth more than the GDP of most nations, liquidated, replaced, destroyed. 3,000 miles away in Purchase, New York, Pepsi CEO Roger Enrico uncorks a bottle of champagne. His marketing team has done the impossible. They've broken Coca-Cola's century-long monopoly on the American psyche. Market share data shows Pepsi gaining ground for the first time in history. The cola wars have entered their nuclear phase. But here's what neither side understood. This wasn't a battle over sugar water. This was a hostile takeover of human psychology itself. A fight for permanent real estate inside the consumer brain. What happened next would trigger the greatest marketing catastrophe in corporate history, spawn billion-dollar lawsuits, and permanently reshape how every company on Earth sells you products today. This is the story of how two brown liquids built a combined market cap of over $500 billion, and why the American economy would look fundamentally different without them. Coca-Cola was never supposed to be a beverage empire. In 1886, Atlanta pharmacist John Pemberton cooked up a medicinal syrup laced with coca leaf extract and cola nuts, essentially cocaine and caffeine in liquid form. He sold it for 5 cents a glass as a headache cure. Annual revenue, $50. He died 2 years later, broke and addicted to morphine. But a man named Isa Candler saw something Pemberton couldn't. Not a medicine, a franchise. Here's the scheme that built the first beverage monopoly. Candler didn't sell Coca-Cola. He sold syrup. He licensed the bottling rights to independent operators across America for almost nothing, just $1. Those bottlers would handle distribution, manufacturing, and local marketing. Coca-Cola kept the recipe secret and collected dividends on every single bottle sold, everywhere, forever. By 1895, Coca-Cola had bottling plants in every state, zero capital expenditure, infinite leverage. Candler had invented what we now call the asset-light franchise model, the same playbook McDonald's and Starbucks would weaponize decades later. But here's the question that should be burning in your mind. Why didn't Coca-Cola simply dominate forever? What force was powerful enough to crack a monopoly this perfectly designed? Enter Caleb Bradham, 1893, a North Carolina pharmacist with his own sugar water formula. He called it Pepsi-Cola. And he had one advantage Coca-Cola couldn't buy. He was willing to go to war on price. The first cola war wasn't fought with advertisements. It was fought with pennies. During the Great Depression, Pepsi was nearly bankrupt twice. They'd been in and out of receivership, their assets stripped, their brand worthless. By 1931, market share functionally zero. Then came the nickel gambit. In 1934, Pepsi CEO Charles Guth made a decision that would alter American capitalism. While Coca-Cola sold 6.5-ounce bottles for a nickel, Pepsi would sell 12-ounce bottles for the same nickel. Twice the product, same price. Coca-Cola executives dismissed it as a desperation move, a company liquidating its future for short-term liquidity. They were catastrophically wrong. By 1936, Pepsi's sales had tripled. By 1940, they'd captured 14% of the cola market, up from near zero. The radio jingle Nickel Nickel became the first advertising song to hit mainstream airwaves, played 1 million times a day. Coca-Cola's response? A lawsuit. They claimed Pepsi's name, specifically the cola portion, infringed on their trademark. They demanded a complete hostile takeover of Pepsi's brand identity. The case went to the Supreme Court. Coca-Cola lost. The word cola was declared generic, unownable, free for anyone. This single ruling opened the floodgates. Suddenly, any company could enter the cola market. The monopoly was cracked. But Coca-Cola had a second weapon, bottler contracts. Those $1 licensing agreements from the 1890s, they locked in syrup prices forever. Bottlers were trapped in century-old contracts that made renegotiation nearly impossible. Coca-Cola controlled the entire supply chain through legal leverage, not ownership. The inflation-adjusted value of those contracts today estimated at over $23 billion in locked-in profit margins. Meanwhile, the psychological war escalated. In 1975, Pepsi launched the Pepsi Challenge, blind taste tests in shopping malls across America. Consumers on hidden camera chose Pepsi over Coke by significant margins. The footage ran as national advertising. Coca-Cola's market share, once over 60 cents, dropped below 24%. For the first time in history, Coca-Cola was losing. Which brings us back to that Atlanta boardroom, April 1985. The nuclear option. New Coke was supposed to end the war. Coca-Cola reformulated their century-old recipe to taste sweeter, smoother, more like Pepsi. Internal testing showed consumers preferred it. The company spent $4 million in research. Every metric said this would work. They were measuring the wrong thing. Within 48 hours of the announcement, Coca-Cola's customer service lines received 8,000 calls per day. Not feedback. Rage. Consumers stockpiled cases of old Coke like it was gold bullion. A psychiatrist Coca-Cola hired to monitor the calls said people spoke about the change like they were describing the death of a family member. The company had underestimated something no balance sheet could quantify: emotional equity. 79 days later, Coca-Cola surrendered. They brought back the original formula as Coca-Cola Classic. Sales exploded. Within 6 months, Coke recaptured market dominance and never relinquished it again. Some conspiracy theorists claim the entire debacle was intentional, a marketing stunt to generate billions in free publicity. Coca-Cola denies this, but the outcome speaks for itself. A corporate disaster became the greatest brand reinforcement in advertising history. Roger Enrico, the Pepsi CEO who had celebrated New Coke's announcement, later admitted, "After that, we knew we would never truly win. We could fight them, but we couldn't kill them." The war shifted from market share to something more insidious: perpetual engagement. Both companies realized total victory was impossible, so they chose mutually assured profitability. They would compete forever because the competition itself drove consumer interest, media coverage, and cultural relevance. Today, Coca-Cola's market cap sits at approximately $270 billion. Pepsi, now PepsiCo, diversified into Frito-Lay and Quaker, holds roughly $230 billion, combined assets exceeding $500 billion. The war never ended. It became the business model. Every Super Bowl ad you've ever watched exists because of the Cola Wars. Before Pepsi and Coca-Cola turned advertising into psychological warfare, marketing was informational. Here's our product, here's what it does. The Cola Wars invented lifestyle branding. They sold identity, not beverages. Pepsi became youth and rebellion. Coke became tradition and unity. This framework now governs every major consumer brand on Earth. Apple versus Samsung, Nike versus Adidas, Ford versus Chevy. The playbook is always the same: create a rivalry, make consumers choose a tribe, extract lifetime value from identity loyalty. The Cola Wars also reshaped antitrust law. The failed trademark lawsuit established that common descriptive words cannot be monopolized, a precedent that affects every tech company, every startup, every brand name filed today. And the bottler contracts? They pioneered the modern franchise agreement. Every fast food chain, every hotel brand, every gas station convenience store uses a descendant of the system Asa Candler built in 1895. Two pharmacists making headache syrup accidentally constructed the architecture of American consumer capitalism. The final lesson is darker than it appears. Coca-Cola and Pepsi proved that in mature markets, competitors don't actually want to destroy each other. They want to sustain each other. The war generates the attention. The attention generates the revenue. The rivalry is the product. As Warren Buffett, who made billions from his Coca-Cola dividends, once observed, the best business is a royalty on the growth of others. The Cola Wars were never about winning. They were about making sure the fight never ends.